and friends in the room. So, I'm just a habit. This old house needs some reno, but it's very similar to the structure of Chithurst house, the layout of the staircase and the rooms and the attic where the servants would have been. Where we have the interviews is kind of similar situation to the room that Lompa Samedo and I shared that first maybe 6 months before we could get him a small private room in 1979, I think. Yeah. And it's coming up a lot in my memory because the layout of the house is so similar. Imagine that room then with 30-40% of the floor missing. Probably. Am I exaggerating? Maybe 25%. Who's doing the numbers? And basically just a little kind of a Mickey Mouse barrier around it. And then the floor below is gutted. And then there's the basement. So like a bit of heedlessness and boo, you're dead. And so there was the house was filled with dry rot, say, fungus that destroys wood. And the flowers of the dry rot were in the basement. It was very damp. And they looked evil. Huge things on the ceiling of the basement, like, from one fan to the other, these fungal centers, and then off of that went all these tentacles, all through, and the walls of the upper stories were lath and plaster. So lath is wood and horsehair. Very, very old. So the tentacles of the dry rot were all through the lath and plaster. So we had to rip all the walls, the plaster out, back to the stone walls, and then we had to put 3/4 diameter holes, about 8 inches deep, every 6 inches, and filled it with this wretched chemical called wicamol, and like all the walls up in that size of house. And then we had to redo the walls and so on. So it was a massive job. And we had to wear a lot of equipment because they're very toxic. Ajahn Sucitto, somehow I think he didn't put on some of the equipment, or he didn't wear or something, he just bit it. I forget why, but he almost died. He said he had a religious experience. So we worked very, very hard. But I've told this before too, but so I was sharing the space with Lompo, and my energy was, I was 32, I think, and I'd been in London for 2 years in the Hampstead Vihara, and I was really into the work. It was great, physical work, young guy. And Lompo, he's senior to me, but his work was more with people. So where we were at physically was quite different. And he'd be up so early. Oh, gosh. And he's a really diligent yoga practitioner. He never taught that, but he was very, very diligent. And also his sitting practice was awesome. So I'd be there totally like zonked out. And he's up, so I think, I have to get up. So when we got him a private room finally, I was so relieved. I really was. It was a very interesting time. And now it's just the most exquisite monastery. It is really, it was slave labor, so you could do that. But the way the Sangha and all the community have fixed it up, it's gorgeous. It's really, really gorgeous. And Ajahn Sucitto was there, and then he went to Amaravati, and then he was there for 25 years. So he's put his heart and soul into that place and done a beautiful job. He's probably planted 1,000 trees. He loves his trees. You see him going around with his trees, looking at his trees. It's very sweet. Anyway, that's the house has brought up memories, but it was derelict. I mean, but it was the kind of place we could afford. I think it cost like £100,000 or something, and the Hampstead Vihara sold for the same. So, and it was perfect because it was a kind of project that needed a lot of people, and a lot of people wanted to ordain with Luang Por. And before that, we only had Hampstead Vihara, so you had 5 or 6 rooms, so you couldn't really ordain people, couldn't start a Sangha. And we had come to England for the specific purpose of starting a Sangha, not to teach retreats. The English Sangha Trust was set up as an institution to try to start a Western Sangha in England. So it was like, and the chairman, George Sharp, he understood that. And he said, I'm not here to get you to teach. I'm here to try to create a Sangha. So for a Westerner to have that vision was rare, because most of the relationship to monks was as teachers. But that, I think the vision of a Sangha, people from Buddhist countries understand that much better than in Western culture. So he was good. Anyway, that's Chithurst. That's a good project. Just what a young monk needs. Unfortunately, that's where I did my first Niyin. Because on one wing of the house, it's a single story with lofts in the single story. In one of the lofts, because the house was built in Victorian times, in 1870? Something like that. And it's a very intricate system of collecting rainwater. Very, very, very clever. It had 14 chimneys. And some of the chimneys were like massive. So the rainwater was collected in a tank near the scullery, and it was a tank built with large slate slabs. So it was beautifully made, but it was kind of from where the TV partition is over to here to kind of to this chair. These massive slate slabs. I don't know how they did it. Maybe that's too big. I'm exaggerating. Anyway, it's big. and just put together beautifully. So all the rainwater collected there. And then they used that in the scullery and so on. But unfortunately, the dry rot had undermined the whole structure. So when we got there, it was in the danger that we'd find a dead monk under the the tank. So we had to get it out. And it was dodgy just kind of being up there. So we had block and tackle. And there was one man who was really good in block and tackle. So we got the blocks up on the rafters. And then we were holding the ropes, trying to lower it down in this crazy way. And one of the blocks slipped on the rafter, just that much. But my knee was in the wrong place. And then just that whack. I mean, I didn't crush my leg, right? But it was enough that now I need a knee replacement. But it's lasted pretty good. So that was really interesting. Anyway, back to Dharma. Stories are good, aren't they? Lighten up the whole trip of trying to get enlightened. This morning I felt tired. And it's a good example of what, I just kind of portray the example of what we mean by attachment. So I felt tired, and I felt old. And now that is a feeling, even the definition of it, but let's say I felt tired. Now, if I take that feeling of being tired and then I run with it, with thinking, I'm really tired today, God, no, I don't have to go. They're okay, they're all wise. And I'll just, gosh, maybe I'll just go back to the monastery. That's called ahankara mimankara. I'm making my making. And that's what we mean by attachment, quite simply. And then the Mompos, it's like this, is a stepping back from ahankara mimankara to knowing it's like this before the creation of a self. So that's kind of a simple example, but it is the kind, that's all you really need to know, actually. Because if you can do that, then each time ahankara mimankara comes up, you disengage it, you just know it. Maybe like, this is a suffering being, like you were saying yesterday, with compassion, rather than, shut up, Viradhammo, you're not old. That's not awareness. It's not a judgment about whatever the perception is. It's simply knowing that as a perception. And it's not to say that I couldn't have then gone, had an extra hour sleep or whatever, that's all fine, but it's the ahankara mimankara which we're talking about. And disengaging that is just the Bahya Sutta or whatever you want. It's like this. Tiredness feels like this. And it's this lovely space. And that's kind of a way of talking about freedom. The tiredness is just the come of the body. It's going to be that way. But the come of the mind, of course, is the habit of what one does with that. So that's easy. That's easy to do. What if I had fatigue syndrome? Up the ante. Every day. Every day. Every day. What would be the natural course of thought? Despair. Where is this going? Why doesn't this end? I think I'll do made. It could go all over the place. And that would be some pretty serious ahankara mimankara. And you'd have to do a serious practice to actually not get drawn into the reality of the despair, because it would be a very real feeling. And it would be the same thing. Despair feels this way. So my friend, who uses his buzzer, I remember I said that, he's got chronic pain, and he's trying to get off these heavy drugs, which getting off them takes him to despair. So there's a double kind of thing going on. And he's amazing. The buzzer rings every 2 minutes. Not when he's with his mom, or like when I'm FaceTiming him or whatever. Every 2 minutes he says, I love you. I have always loved you. I will always love you. Diligent. But he says otherwise, it's very easy for the mind to go to despair. That's where it wants to go. And he always says to me, yeah, there's space. The buzzer is space. He says this in this most kind of delightful way. And that is a very important concept in our inner world, isn't it? Space. Nopo Smito talks a lot about that. So this morning I really didn't make it a problem, but you got to talk about something, right? I'm okay. You don't have to give me more coffee. Definitely don't give me more coffee. But then you'll find the more extreme the events are in your life, the more extreme the ahankara mimankara is going to be. If let's say I have an knee operation, and they say it failed, and we're going to have to do it again. You imagine my ahankara mimankara? You what? To go through that pain again? Oh no, I can't remember. Panic feels this way. Worry feels this way. And what also is happening, the tendency towards ahankara mimankara, which is attachment, that is also lessening. Because the awareness is being strengthened. The capacity for awareness, the capacity for knowing is being strengthened. And from that place of witnessing, say, and kindness, then that's where insight comes. That's where you understand yourself. Like you were talking about the way your body presents itself. And Janice's comment was, the body never lies. And that was really, it's really kind of insightful about that. But you'll only have that possibility if you're available, right? If you're not available, if you're just in ahankara mimamkara, where's the possibility for insight or understanding at somatic levels, at psychological levels, or whatever levels that it is possible? Get out of the way. We say that too, don't we? Just get out of the way and see what happens. One of the Pali words which I've always found useful is anusaya, and it translates as latent tendency. And that one works for me. Like I said last night, some words don't work for me, but I'm not a scholar, so I take this very personally. Luang said, don't take your life personally. But that's another story. Anyway, so what I've had to learn is the latent tendencies of this conditioned mind. So it's, let's say, I've worked through that pretty well, but self-righteousness. So being a senior monk and, having authority and having responsibility for various kinds of things. And then I hear that someone has done A, B, and C, which is really wrong in the sense of monastic. You can't do that. And then, don't believe it, Viradhammo. Don't believe it. This is what self-righteousness feels like. Don't believe it. And then I believe it, and I say it. Oh, got caught. And that's the most horrible one, isn't it? You kind of know. Don't do it, and you do it. And then you burn with regret and remorse. And then what do you do with regret and remorse is you have to make that conscious. Because then you go into the next ahankara mimamkara. I'm terrible, heedless, why aren't you more aware, which is not awareness. But if you go to the remorse, into the heart, that's very uncomfortable, to say the least. But then that informs you. That's what brings up wisdom and caution and care, because I don't want to have this hurt anymore. And I don't want to hurt anyone else too. So remorse is actually not guilt. Guilt is a hankara mimamkara in the way I use the word guilt. But remorse is a really good quality, because it shows me that no, that's injurious to other people. Whatever. It doesn't come from a place of wisdom and kindness and goodness. I still have responsibility. I still have to say, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. And if you keep doing that, I'm sorry, you have to leave the monastery. That's fine. I have to. Otherwise, I would be irresponsible. But the kind of self-righteousness, I've been really burned by that one. I've just done the dumbest things. And then you walk away. Again? You did that again, you idiot? You did it 6 months? Blah, 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 blah. Remorse feels like this. So these are, and this is this idea of anusaya, latent tendencies. I don't program the mind that way. The mind's been programmed that way for whatever reason. So it comes up, and it's not my fault. But as I always say, it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility, because if I don't pay attention to it, I'm going to get the karma of it. And I'll be back in that same loop of suffering. So ahankara mimamkara, I like that word too. It's a kind of nice package when the mind is creating a sense of self. So in that vein, then, when ahankara mimamkara is relinquished, moment by moment, right? Moment by moment. In this example of self-righteousness, when I really practiced well with it, then it would come up really, really strong. But now the awareness was very strong. Don't go there. It's like this. Don't go there. It's like this. Don't go there. It's like, and I'm really like a strong inner vigilance, because I know the danger of that. If I'm not attentive to that and I just follow, it's like if I really believe that now the way to solve this problem is to blast this guy, and that's the delusion, and that's coming from ahankara mimamkara. Don't believe it. And then if I just trust that, you say, you will say something, Viradhammo. You will say something, but say it from the heart. There's not, and I'm not like you mustn't say anything. It's not an ego thing. It's allowing the heart to respond in an appropriate way. And you don't know how it's going to respond, but you allow it to respond from that kind of more that centered place. That's been a big lesson for me. And also it's been a big cleansing, because witnessing the ahankara mimamkara and not believing it took a lot of, first of all, took a lot of embarrassing mistakes. Then it took more and more, be careful, don't believe that. Vigilance, suggestion, intention, and then maybe a volcano of that. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is your chance. Don't go, don't follow it. And then there's a cleansing. And that cleansing then is the anusaya, or the asava, whatever words you like to use. The asava are coming out, but they're no longer believed in as a reality, and they cease. They go away from the mind, because that's their nature. And so you have the word upadana. Upadana is attachment, but interestingly, as you know, I often say, upadana is also fuel. It's a conjoined word, it means fuel. And you can see that ahankara mimamkara in this case is fuel, as well as attachment. So non-attachment is, don't put any more on that fire, man. It's burning enough. And so that's why Rumi's thing about the burning kind of makes sense to me. That okay. So the ahankara mimamkara is going, and the anger's there, the self-righteousness is there. Just breathe. Don't go there. Walk away. Go to the forest. Have a cup of tea. Anything but follow that mood. And then the liberation then is that the tendencies dies. So from that, what you have is a kind of really authentic love. Because now the heart's not contracted with its own ego sense and self-making, and now it's available. And what happens is, because it's available, it connects. And that is the magic of the human condition. It doesn't have to be that way, like the squirrels. Do they do that? Maybe. Chipmunks, I don't know, but we humans have that possibility. And I find that, I often think, why is that? But I'm grateful. So the encouragement towards the Brahma Viharas is what we do as well, through different kind of practices, but also the allowing of these things to come out. And like Luang Sumedho would call that an emotional enema. Ooh. And it's true. It's very graphic, but it's very, very true. So don't, like me, I suggest that's there's an opportunity there to liberate the mind. If one doesn't have the space for this, and one is just being impacted with constant negativity, then it's obviously very, very hard. You need quite a lot of privacy, I think, because if you don't have some privacy to do this, you usually have to just push it down and be a person once again. You can't just be a vegetable or a withering whatever. You have to play the role of being mom or dad or worker or whatever, and then that is a necessary part of social. Like if I'm a senior monk, and that's coming up, I still have to practice right speech, be responsible, and all the rest of it. So the privacy of my own kuti and like going for it is very, very important. And I realize lay life doesn't often have that, but probably more and more as you get older, you get more privacy. And then it is an opportunity, because now it's conscious. Now it's up in the it can't hurt you, but it's not your fault. It's not wrong. So it's more like an opportunity. So things like chronic fatigue, well, they're not upwellings. They're not really anusaya. They're just kind of biological, natural responses to pain. Who wants pain? So the sense experience is very negative. And biologically, you want to get away from that, but can't. And that's really hard. That's very, very hard to be with. But if you keep track of a hunkery munker, you get your best chance of not losing it with that. So, when I get these knees done, there's going to be some hunkery munker. Oh, why did I do this? I once had typhus in Thailand, which was pretty nasty business. And just sweating, like just so much. And I'm lying there in the hospital. Oh, Mom, where are you? Where else do you go? Anyway, if you take that, I think that's a simple model, right? It's a pretty simple way to think of it. And then you see how profound Luang Por's statement, if it's like this, it really is. And the silence after. Shall we sit?